I want to take you on a visual journey with me. So please close your eyes and take a deep breath. Visualize this with me. You have just woken to a cold, dark, and grey morning. You're still half asleep, feeling heavy as if a magnet is drawing you back. Maybe it's just the weather. As you dress, everything feels uncomfortably tight. You fidget and tug as you head out the door to work. You're walking, driving, or maybe you're pushing yourself onto the bus, the train, really wishing you had that seat. You're exhausted. If your eyelids closed for any longer than a second, they would fall halfway down your cheeks. Maybe you'll be fine when you get to work, though. As you arrive, you feel your energy draining just as fast as the color of your face. You sit, and a throbbing sensation begins to radiate up your back and down your legs. You notice your heart beating faster, a sudden stab to your body, and another one, a hammer thudding at your pelvis, crippling you, immobilizing you. The pain climbing just as fast as your anxiety. Thoughts pound into your head. The meeting, but the pain, the deadline, what's wrong with me? Your breath shortens and shallows as if a corset were tightening around your lungs. This isn't normal. You feel nauseous, dizzy, alone. The pain is unbearable. Your thoughts are consumed. I need to get out of here, but I can't take another sick day. What if I don't get paid? What will my team think? What if I lose my job? Guilt splinters into your system. You can't breathe, let alone think straight. I'm dying. I'm going to die. I need help. You voice internal chaos that develops into despair. Now, keeping your eyes closed for a moment longer, how does this feel? And what if I told you this was your regular experience? It comes out of the blue, you don't know when or for how long. How do you feel now? Think about your future, your career, your dreams. And taking a deep breath, slowly opening your eyes, and maybe just shaking off that visualization. What if I told you this was the experience of an invisible and incurable condition that no one talks about at work? What if I told you that nearly 200 million women of working age are living with it? What if I told you it takes an average of 8 years to be diagnosed, no matter how many doctors you see or how many work days you miss? This is endometriosis at work. And I'm going to tell you that because of the way society is set up, this is a much more debilitating condition than it needs to be. But we have an opportunity to overcome the one-sidedness of the workplace for a more inclusive, equal, and prosperous future. I'll come to that. But firstly, while you may have heard about endometriosis, it's unlikely that you know much about it. So let me fill you in. This is a condition that affects 1 in 10 women. So the likelihood is you already know someone living and working with it. This might be you. But what if it's your daughter, your partner, a colleague? Would you recognize it? And would you believe it? Endometriosis is a condition where tissue resembling the lining of the womb grows outside of its home. It grows onto the ovaries, the bladder, the bowel, and in very extreme cases has been found on the chest and the brain. Each month when this tissue breaks down and bleeds, it's trapped, leading to inflammation, scar tissue, adhesions. The symptoms are disabling: chronic pelvic pain, debilitating period pain, bladder and bowel problems, infertility, anxiety, depression, and a whole host of others. Working with endometriosis means working with chronic and fluctuating symptoms, making it difficult to work on every day of the working month. And this is affecting women's lives and careers worldwide. So my contention is this: The way we're working isn't working for people with endometriosis. And how do I know this? Because I am one of those women. Let me tell you my story. In 2012, I had just landed my dream job in a big digital agency in London. I'd also just began a lifelong career with endometriosis. By 2016, I'd had 2 surgeries and more days off than my HR team could process. Whilst colleagues were off hurdling over their next project or running the London Bar Marathon, the only race I was in was the one straight to menopause. I remember it so clearly, the bomb going off in my pelvis, the agony as my Uber driver rushed me to A&E. And then the email from my boss, warning me I'd left without giving a handover, just as the doctor glorified the words induced menopause at my bedside. Now, I wanted out of this pain so bad, I took the hot flashes, the brain fog, the night sweats, all so I could try and function at work again. And even with 2 fans at my desk, that didn't last long. And I really empathize and sympathize with all women who are currently working through the menopause transition. Months later, I got my own chance at hurdling though, over another A&E entrance. You see, I'd been working with agonizing pelvic pain, which I was used to. I'd been working with a stomach that looked 6 months pregnant, which I was also used to. What I wasn't used to was having my bowel stop functioning. There I was, 1 hour, sat with a specialist, being told I'd need yet another surgery and a colostomy bag. And the next hour, pitching for new business. Working with endometriosis is pretty crap, excuse the pun. What became immediately obvious to me was that I couldn't do this anymore. Not only were my symptoms affecting work, but work was exacerbating my symptoms. So I went part-time. And when that didn't work, I quit. I chose flexibility and financial uncertainty so I could try and have a life. And I'm not the only one. Many women with endometriosis are leaving the workforce. In a study of 7,000 women across 52 countries, over 40% had left or lost or given up their job because of endometriosis, a trend that's been going since the 90s without any intervention. Others are being pushed into part-time roles or choose to become self-employed, whether the support or motivation is there or not. Let me tell you why. Endometriosis significantly disrupts working life. Often women go years suffering in silence to keep their careers. In another study of 500 women, 70 to 90% carried on working despite the pain, burning through the week to spend the whole weekend in bed recovering. And if they do take time off, it adds up, losing £5,000 per year alongside lost promotions, pay rises, and clients. Women with endometriosis are trying to balance a chronic illness with paid and unpaid domestic work. It's effectively working a 3rd shift, and it's unsustainable. Many avoid asking for help because it's stigmatized, it has poor recognition, or ultimately they fear it will be used against them. This is why we can't rely on existing workplace policies. The shame that follows a woman from her first period into the workplace has taught her it's not appropriate to talk about down there. In fact, endometriosis not only carries the stigma of menstruation, but also the taboo of an invisible illness. It's a triple dose of oppression, suppression, and repression. Imagine having to reveal a gender-specific condition that for centuries was misdiagnosed as hysteria. Because endometriosis not only comes with pain, but an emotional whirlwind. Concealing symptoms isn't always possible. But getting access to the appropriate support can be challenging because the structure of work isn't designed for people with endometriosis. Employer responses also vary from those who are flexible and accommodating to those who are discriminating and patronizing. Which women do you think remain and prosper in the workplace? Change isn't just down to organizations, though. We need a greater shift across society, the political sphere, and the medical profession. Endometriosis costs the UK economy £8.2 billion a year in lost work and healthcare. And yet there is still little to no government advice in working with the condition. It's often left down to the power of the medical community to diagnose or discredit women's pain. And this has serious implications for explaining absences and finding the right support. So if the way we're working isn't working, why aren't we changing it? Work wasn't always like this. Once it was flexible, designed around the seasons. Now this changed with the Industrial Revolution, and despite the rapid advancements in technology, the structure of our working week hasn't changed. Most of us are still working with the rigid, monotonous structure that was designed in the 19th century. And the result? Women with endometriosis are having to hide it all. They're having to bend their bodies to fit in with organizational norms that favor the ideal, default, masculine worker who is constantly available. Now, isn't it time we changed a structure and culture that punishes people for being different at work? So what's next for people with endometriosis? Well, imagine coming back to the beginning of the talk and the experience that you may have felt. What if that morning when you started to feel unwell, you were given the permission to work from home? Or you were able to go into work a little later? Or to take the day off paid? Or what if when you got to work, you had the permission to take extra breaks? Or there was a designated area for you to rest? Or what if you were able to structure and organize your work around your symptoms? This is menstrual policy. Strategies that support women with invisible menstrual conditions. A policy that's been widely debated. Many argue it would put gender equality back over 100 years. But here's the thing. Biological differences exist in the workplace. By not addressing them, women continue to perform in pain or leave the workforce entirely. The experience of endometriosis at work isn't something that should be denied, but acknowledged, respected, and responded to. Change can happen. In 2016, Coexist became the first UK company to introduce menstrual policy. What this company and others are doing is introducing and creating unique guidance tools to support people with endometriosis, with polycystic ovary syndrome, debilitating periods, adenomyosis, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and many, many more. They found flexible options, including working from home, made life much more manageable. And this policy not only impacts women. As women engage in more open conversations about their needs, so do men. Imagine a workforce that respects and responds to all life stages and cycles, from the menopause, fatherhood, motherhood, caring for the elderly, for invisible illnesses, for all embodied needs. This is just the beginning, and it begins with menstrual policy. Menstrual policy helps break the taboo that normalizes pain. It legitimizes invisible needs in the workplace, and it enables women to prosper and be productive in the workplace. Industries that risk ignoring this risk losing out on the full potential of their workforce. So what can you do? If you know someone with endometriosis, remember just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. If you're a manager, welcome women's health in the workplace. Be open to having honest two-way conversations about the reasonable adjustments that can benefit you both. And if you have endometriosis, share your story. Stories legitimize, they have power. And the more stories, the more momentum we will create that is hard to ignore. Show your manager the facts. Sit down and request reasonable adjustments that will help you thrive at what you do. It's time more companies and policymakers evolved with the needs of the 21st century workplace. It's time that not only the few were accommodated, but everyone. It's time that people can be fully in the world of work, as well as being fully in their bodies. Thank you.